I just want to be clear on Twisted Metal 2012 because I'm really fucking tired. Like, I own my failures. What's it called? Drawn to Death failed. It will never make its money back unless there's almost a near act of God. It failed critically, commercially. It has its fans. I'm one of them. It was a bomb, okay? You do, but you'd be wrong. You don't get to paint Twisted Metal 2012 as a bomb. It made money. I made money off bonuses. Scott and the team that were still there made money off bonuses. It was relatively well reviewed. Some people really loved it in reviews. There were some 9s, there were some 8.5s, and then some people didn't like it at all. But to say that that game was a bomb, no, not at all. Not at all. And if you're only going to use sales, we were profitable. But the most profitable Twisted Metal game ever was Twisted Metal 3, which is historically, people say, is the worst Twisted Metal ever made. And the other thing that really drives me crazy is these fans that come out and say, Jaffe got it wrong in 2012 because he didn't have any of the stories. There were only 3 characters. He doesn't know what the fans wanted. It's like, fuck off, motherfucker. You think we didn't do research on what the fans wanted? There was a group of fans that loved the story, and we appreciated that. We love the story too, okay? But more fans were like, it's about the multiplayer for us. And the game began life. I mean, sit your fucking ass down. I'm going to give you a fucking education. You need the big screen for this. I'm tired of you going out there, all you people spreading horse shit about shit you don't know shit about. Fucking listen, open your fucking ears. Twisted Metal started life as a multiplayer game only, 2012. It was going to be like a $29 digital download, like Warhawk on the PS3. And so, of course, we didn't have stories. That's why we had factions. There was all these reasons that drove that, okay? And then marketing stepped in and said we want it as a box product. We said we need a lot more time, and even with that time, that's not the team we built. We can't make a game that goes head-to-head with Metal Gear and it's mission-based and you get out of the car. We're not equipped to do that unless you really want to extend this thing. And they said, no, just give us kind of traditional stuff. And so we were like, okay, we were given a very healthy budget to make the movies because, again, we cared about the story and we spent a lot of money on those movies. We shot them twice. But the reason that they were only a couple of characters was because YouTube. I know some of you have nostalgia for being a kid and playing Twisted Metal 2 or Twisted Metal Black and unlocking every car and all that. That's awesome. I have nostalgia for creating that. I have nostalgia for playing that with Mortal Kombat. But the fact is, when this game came out in 2012, YouTube was a thing. It had never been a thing before. So why in the fuck would we spend tons of money on what used to be a carrot that motivated longer playtime, which was, ooh, I want to see this guy's inning. I want to see that guy's inning. When day one, when the game comes out, you can go to YouTube and watch all of that, and it kills one of our biggest carrots that keeps you playing. So I'm just saying, don't fucking sit there and act like it was a dumb creative decision. You don't know. You don't know why it was done. You're not taking all the facts that I just gave you into account. Okay, so I'm going to go to the chat now, but fuck off. I'm so tired of that shit. Cure Optimism says the control scheme was hideous, though. Again, this is why I keep saying they shouldn't make a SOCOM. The control scheme was consistently going back and forth between modern racers. If you were under 18 when Twisted 2012 or somewhere in that came out, or you were just a hardcore gamer playing lots of racing games, you had been conditioned that cars drove with the shoulder buttons. Okay, but the game doesn't play as well because it's more of a shooter than it is a driver. The game doesn't play as well when you put the driving controls on the shoulder buttons, okay? And in that, we had to make a choice of what the default driving was. We had control schemes for modern cars, but the default is what most people use. That's why it's called the default. Well, they use it because it doesn't matter. That's what most people use. And we said, let's side with the hardcore Twisted Metal fans because they're not wrong. The game plays better like this. So I'm not saying the controls were good or bad. I'm saying there are fucking reasons for this shit that are very logical, which is another reason I would never want to do. You think I wouldn't want to touch Twisted Metal at this point? I think the guys making the TV show, that's different. But making a new Twisted Metal, I mean, it's what somebody said about it being in Europe. Those guys never got Twisted Metal. We tried to make the 2012 Twisted Metal more international. We couldn't get them interested. So, maybe they found a way to crack it worldwide, which they need to. Harry Johnson says, no story, no buy for me. Fair enough, Harry Johnson. Why was the netcode so broken for Twisted Metal 2012? The netcode was not broken. And again, it's not your job to know how things are made. I don't know what your job is actually, but it's not your job to know how things are made. But when people say, oh, the netcode was shit. No, it wasn't. The netcode was brilliant. The netcode, the reason there's racing in Twisted Metal, which is the stupidest fucking thing in the goddamn world, and I hated it. The reason it stayed in is because we didn't want to piss off the main network coder and his buddy who put it in without anybody asking him to do it. They thought it was great. We're like, you know what? The bread and butter of this fucking thing is going to be the multiplayer. Don't piss them off right now. We need them. Once those games worked, once you got connected, you can't tell me that network code wasn't smooth as fucking butter. Those guys were flying missiles and rams and magnets and wrecking balls. I mean, these guys were doing the kind of prediction-based math in a very fast-paced 3D environment that you don't see a lot of games today do. They're not doing that shit in Call of Duty, I guarantee you. The netcode wasn't bad. What was bad was Sony had very little experience, and we had next to no experience putting together a service-based game. And they had a lot of their stuff working at Sony that we dialed into, like the back end, the lobby system, certain servers, all this. Our thing was a hybrid. It was some of it was peer-to-peer, some of it was server-based, server authenticated. And it was that handshaking between matchmaking and rankings and stats. That's where it all got fucked up. And Sony didn't have the experience to know yet. They do now. We didn't have the experience to know what we didn't know. None of us, even though I said, why aren't we having a beta? No, it's great. It's fine. We don't need a beta. Imagine how stupid that is. That's how inexperienced Sony was, and we were at the time, that none of us said, are you nuts? Of course we need a beta for this fucking thing. Okay? That's where the game went off the rails in terms of the multiplayer. It had nothing to do with the netcode. Bacon said, didn't Twisted Metal TM have an online passcode to help prevent reselling? Why was Sony and Eat Sleep Play anti-consumer? Okay, if we were anti-consumer, it was because the consumer was anti-game maker first. I mean, what do you want from me? Right? I mean, seriously, fuck you. I didn't like the online pass either, but fuck you. Okay? Because this is what the consumer did back then. It was, I'm going to buy this game. Forget Twisted Metal. I'm going to buy a new Resident Evil. I'm going to buy God of War 3. It's great. I love it. I played it over the weekend. It took me 12, 13 hours. Took it back to the store. GameStop made a boatload of money off it. They never cut us in because they didn't have to. That's fine. They never cut the publisher, the designer, the developers in. The gamer got a little bit of credit, got to buy something else, new or used. And the people who actually made the games got fucked. We lost meaningful percentages of sales to GameStop specifically. I don't know about in the UK how bad it was, but it was bad over here. And you lost meaningful sales because people would sell their shit back because GameStop, that was their whole business model. So if we're anti-consumer, it's because, you could track it down and go, we were actually pro-consumer because if we would have all gone out of business, y'all wouldn't have had any shit to play. Eternal, you're saying they were boneheaded attempts at combating used sales. How else would you do it? And no, just make the game better. Well, not everybody, even God of War 3. I remember Shannon telling me that I was like, how's God of War 3 doing? And she says, well, people love it. Obviously, it's phenomenal. She said, but there's a bunch sitting in a warehouse because, we thought we were going to sell more into the stores, but they're like, no, we got a bunch of used copies. So I don't think the answer is just make a better game. Yeah, you can make a better game. Why do you think a lot of these games started getting loaded with loot boxes and microtransactions and all this? I mean, yeah, I agree, Frank. Frank says that's why digital stores are a godsend for game developers. Yeah, Encryption says, I remember people rushing to stores to get a full refund. Such a dick move. I mean, it's not a dick move. I hear you. It feels like a dick move. But as a consumer, I never was upset with the consumer. I was like, you should get the best deal you can get. But, don't blame us for going, hey, we left the barn door open and you're sneaking in and stealing all our cows. I don't know what you steal in a barn, but you know what I mean.